going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Pro Source Pod. In this one, we're going to be going over the average velo and age of MLB draftees in the 2024 class. Nick's got drafted up on his computer, a bunch of numbers. We dove into it a bunch, did some extensive research on the average fastball velocity and the age of guys in the MLB 2024 draft class. So, Nick, give us what you got and let us know the sources too.
So it depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for position players? Are you looking for the overall? Or do you just want me to give you position player pitchers, then average fastball velocity, and then overall, all the players drafted, their age?
Just give me overall.
Okay. So the average age of a position player was 21.3 years of age. And the majority of them were college draftees. So the bulk of the draft's coming from college now. While high school position players average around 18 years old. That information is from MLB.com and Prospects Live. So all the data is coming from MLB.com, the Draft Central. Everyone can find it. It's just going to take a little while to sift through. And then Prospects Live as well is another source. Next, we have pitchers. College pitchers had an average age of 21.8 years old, and high school pitchers averaged around 18.5 years old. Once again, MLB.com and Prospects Live. So the interesting thing is, between position players and pitchers, the hitters are younger. Pitchers are older, which I actually would have expected pitchers to be younger, not older, because of wear and tear. But if you really think about it, it makes sense that they're slightly older for the fact that they're throwing harder than ever.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's really impressive if an 18-year-old's throwing 100 miles an hour.
Absolutely. I was saying it makes sense because a lot of high school pitchers, I feel like, don't pan out maybe as well as high school position players.
Do you remember Riley Pint?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Didn't he throw like 101 or 102 in high school?
Yeah, dude. He got drafted by the Rockies, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
It was either Rockies or Tigers. I don't know.
He was disgusting.
They were comparing him to like Verlander. Like, whatever happened to him? Did he ever make it up?
No. He's done playing baseball.
I mean, college pitchers make it pretty fast, too.
Exactly.
Skeen's less than a year.
Yeah.
Nola was like a year. Nola out of LSU was like a year. And he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. So it's like, once again, DeGrom, college guy.
Yeah.
Who else can you think of off the top of your head, like some of the best pitchers? I know
Cole.
Scherzer was a college guy.
Cole.
I mean, Verlander was a college guy.
Yeah.
Old Dominion.
Cole came out of UCLA. I think there's like, what the hell's Shane Bieber, UCSB.
So what do you think the parallel is there that like they want older guys? You think it's that they know how to get hitters out and there's less ego involved?
Yeah.
So think of a young pitcher, right? This is the way I'd like to look at it because I know how their brains worked when I was calling pitches at one point for them, right? They all want to go to fastball. And another thing is like it's very rare that a young arm has command of his off speed. So to me, it's a little bit ego in their head where it's like they can understand that the hitter has seen what they're seeing and they're not fazed by it at the next level.
Yeah.
Where like in high school, right, a young pitcher is going to get away with just throwing a fastball.
Blowing fastballs by dudes. Yeah. Like no one's sniffing 96 in high school.
You're throwing 96 in college, people are hitting you.
100%.
Because like you might not face a college-ready hitter in high school at all. And then the guys who actually play in college, they see that stuff all the time. Yeah, like you might struggle a little bit facing it, but they can compete against it. So like each level, it just gets harder and harder because it's guys who are seeing it all the time to compete against it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of polishing that goes on when you play college baseball, no matter who you are, pitcher or position player. It's like I feel like it would bode well for both ends. But like, why do you think position players get taken out of high school more? Or is it just because when I looked at the numbers, like at least the first round in this draft, dude, it went like
Ton of hitters.
There was, I think,
and they're all college guys. It's very rarely
there were 10 picks in a row that weren't pitchers.
Yeah,
from pick 5 to 15, it was all position players.
Yeah.
Why? Do you have a guess? Obviously, it's not. You don't have the answer, but
I mean, I would just go off the top of my head that most of them are having man strength at this point, right? So like a lot of those guys have seen the top competition. So if you go back and look at where they were drafted from too, like their conference, a lot of it's SEC or ACC. Like those are like the two conferences right now that are kind of dominating like the first couple rounds of the draft.
Absolutely.
And then like you have your high school guy.
Their
like,
whole teams are getting drafted.
Like think about like a Volpe, right? Like a guy where it's like so phenomenal at one thing and it's like good enough at the other. That's like, okay, he has what it takes. It might take him a little bit, but like he's worth this and worth the money now versus the other guy that I would go take, especially for his age. Like give him 3 years in the system, he'll be fine. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's like they also see those guys at like facing the top pitchers that are in high school, right? So like a high school draftee position player, they saw them at PG All-American game when they're facing like examples, Nick Decker, right? Nick Decker he's a guy who got drafted in the second round our senior year. Well, I know, was he first round technically? Was he like accessory? Like
no, it was second round. Picks? He was second round.
Yeah, so he got drafted in the second round. He was really hyped up from like freshman year. He was committed to like Maryland when Maryland was making a big push for New Jersey guys. The funny thing was everyone used to talk smack on him because like he didn't do anything in high school really. Like he was kind of just
He hit the ball far.
That's like when he hit it hard. Yeah. Like he was 5 tool. Like he was very, very fast. Like I'm pretty sure he ran like, I don't know what he ran, but he had like a top 60.
He had a crazy 60 time.
Yeah. Had a great arm. Pretty athletic. He was yoked.
He was jacked.
But in high school didn't do much against like normal competition. I mean, I get that they're pitching around him, but he would go to PG All-American. I remember like people talking about it because people would watch it because once again, it was Nick Decker and it was like just in general, people used to watch that stuff all the time. He'd go be facing like 95, 97 and he'd be like drilling it off the wall like it was nothing. Like he just dominated those showcases. Like he's going to PG All-American facing like the top arms in high school, which are like, think about it, it's plus arms throwing in the 97, 98 range.
Yeah.
So like they're at that age and they can compete and dominate on that.
And plus you're getting a bunch of fastballs at those events.
Yeah. So it's like right there, they're seeing enough where it's like, okay, they can compete against like the talent. Now they just need to season it. We'll take a chance on him now. And it's like, you're not going to see that many guys in high school who are drafted in the later rounds that even go. It's very rare.
You just go to college at that point.
They usually go to college at that point. Like Davis is like one of the outliers of he went and it panned out.
Yeah.
Because usually they go, if they don't perform right away, they're just cut because there's no money invested in them. It's a little bit different now. That's not 40 rounds, but it's still like kind of the same. So now that's not 40 rounds. There's even more people being drafted from college. Like the numbers are skewed more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're just trying to make these picks count.
Yeah. So let me kind of continue right now. Let's get off of that for a second. The average fastball velocity. The exact average fastball velocity for pitchers drafted in the 2024 MLB Draft was 94.3 miles per hour. Think about that for a second. We live in a world now where, I hate to say it, folks, if you can't sustain your velo, you're not going to pitch. So it doesn't matter if you're maxing out at 95. It's not that special, right? So if you max out at 95, but you're sitting like 89, that's not going to really do anything.
Yeah, you're not getting picked. You'll go play at a good college maybe, but you're not playing pro.
If you're below 94, you're like if your average fastball is below 94, think about that. You're below average.
That's nuts. Can you do a search real quick? What's the MLB average fastball
right now?
Yeah, like real quick. I think it's around the same thing as 94.3.
Let me go on Baseball Savant. The average fastball in the MLB in 2024 is 93.7 miles per hour.
So that's lower than the average in the MLB Draft. Well, obviously because there's much smaller sample size, but that's still crazy.
But it shows you the push and where everyone's focusing on.
That's crazy to think about, dude.
But it's like I hate to say to everyone, like you need to throw hard and you can't just I peak out at this. Like that doesn't matter. Like these guys getting drafted, they're averaging 94. So like they're tops. There's guys topping over 100 getting drafted.
Yeah.
Like there's a big sample size of those guys.
Yeah.
And like even high school guys who are throwing 98, like touching 100.
You can't get away with being a showcase player. Like you really can't. Can't get away with going to a showcase, throwing 15 pitches. 2 of them are hard, and the rest are kind of just like mediocre, 3 miles per hour below your top. Like you should be able to maintain. Like your top velo should be within
2 miles an hour. I'd say
2 to 3 miles per hour of your max.
I would say
average.
I'd say 3 is too high. I'd say 2.
3 at like absolute most.
It depends if you're a starter or reliever, and that's just like it's a whole collection. But overall age of all drafted players in the 2024 MLB Draft, both pitchers and position players, was 21.1 years of age. So the average age of all draftees is 21.1 years old.
Yeah.
The point one's throwing me off.
It's how do we get
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Might be like a 5th-year senior or something. 23.
I mean, just people that are 22 and it's just calculated that way.
That too.
It's just numbers.
Either way.
Yeah. That's not really the 23, but okay. No, but I mean, that's the average age right now. So you can get drafted at 23, but you're going to have less time. You can draft at 24 and have less time. The average draft age is pretty old, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of people think it's either right now, but at the same time, the window for your improvement to get to the average is a lot smaller. You know what I mean? So it's like, how old are you currently? Are you 18 years old? Well, you got 3 years to get your average to 94.3. And guess what? I'll tell you what, that's probably getting higher soon.
Yeah. And that's just that.
But
that's
the way
just
things are trending. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just the fact.
The way things are trending.
Possible.
So it's like, what's your window? Like, what's the time frame you have to realistically gain this velocity too? So, are you looking for the fastest solution? Well, are you trying to jeopardize your arm health? Like, where are you going to do this? You know what I mean?
100%. All of these have to be taken into consideration.
So it's like, do you have time or don't you have time? Really?
It's either look at where you're at right now. Do you have the velo? No. Well, how much time do you have? I have this much time. Okay. Well, what are you going to do with that time?
You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So in terms of time, right, we're talking about the age aspect, and we're talking about velocity on the fastball. So some people don't have time. Eric, for example, didn't have time to actually get his fastball up. So he actually has his own journey of what happened with him and his chase for velo to get drafted. Eric, do you want to walk us through what year was it in college where you realized if you want to get drafted, you're going to have to gain some velo?
Yeah, it was 2022. So that was my last year actually playing in college. It was 2022. I was 22 years old at that point.
So right there, you're over the average age.
Right at that point, I was over the age.
And you weren't a D1 guy, right?
Wasn't a D1 guy. Pitched at Rowan, D3. Really good school, but yeah, I just wanted to try. I wanted to get drafted. I wanted to, or at least try to get signed or something. But
so right away, like the D3 thing, you're already like in an uphill fight. And it's not the fact that it's D3. It's the fact that if you're getting drafted at D3, you're probably going to be like an upper 90s guy.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely shoving.
Correct.
So when you decided to take a gap year, right? You did do a gap year.
Yes.
And that was all to gain velo.
Yes.
Right? At any point, did you think about transferring to a different school, or did you always want to go back to Rowan?
I considered transferring at first. Like, if I was able to get my velo to a point, which, by the way, was averaging 84, topping like 86, and maybe reaching back for an 87. If I could have gotten my velo to a point where I could go pitch at like a higher D2 or a D1, then yeah. But as that process went on, I was like, well, I'm probably just going to go back to Rowan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm kind of curious, like, do you know what happened to your velo at any point? I remember you telling me that going into your fall sophomore year at Mercer, when you were at JUCO, you were looking at Stony Brook because you were flashing like 89 and you were like soaking wet like 130 pounds.
Yeah, it was interesting. I like that year I didn't really do a whole lot besides just like throw a bunch. I was a big long toss guy. I got in the weight room, and it kind of just fell into place, and I started throwing harder. And then after that, like, it was kind of just downhill, and
not your performance, but like your actual like velo, right?
Yeah, not my performance. My performance in game was fine, not great, but fine. But my velo just kept going down year to year after that, which kind of sucked. And I think it was mostly just doing part to not having a plan, doing what I see on like social media, throwing a bunch of plyos and stuff.
You were a program hopper at one point, right?
Absolutely a program hopper.
So like you just like flipped like what you actually believed in constantly.
Yeah. I was definitely swayed by things I saw on social media, like in the baseball realm, and it was to my detriment, obviously.
I mean, I know you worked with one of the premier facilities. So it's like, and you didn't really have anything bad to say about them. You just didn't get any results. I mean, kind of like other people I've known, insert certain names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's like nothing bad, nothing against them. They were doing what they do with everyone, but I didn't respond well to throwing plyos all the time and throwing weighted balls. It didn't work well for me. And my arm started hurting more than ever. So it was like, obviously didn't work.
And you never went back after your gap year just because you didn't get the velo, did you?
Time was up for me. I mean, I was 23, flirting with 24 years old at that point, still throwing in the mid 80s. So it was like, kind of had to take a look at reality and realize that even if I were to make a huge jump, it's like, first, would it be even healthy for me to do that? And second, like, it's very hard to get into affiliate ball when you're past a certain age. And usually that age is like 23.
So to give you guys some insight, when we developed our program, the 90-mile-per-hour blueprint, it was developed over a year ago, starting with essentially me, because Eric was honestly getting done throwing at that point.
Yeah.
Because he decided to hang it up, like he literally retired. And then we're always in the facility working together, like we're training people all the time. So it was like, hey, like, especially I decided I was coaching high school that year. So it was like, hey, like, I'm going to have to know how to, like, I was a catcher, right? I was a catcher my whole life. Never threw on the mound. Always wanted to. And I was like, dude, like, I think I can maybe get to 90.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to throw on a mound.
Because you had a gun. You had a
yeah, but I had no idea how to pitch. I had no idea how to pitch. And it was like, also keep in mind, I haven't thrown in over literally haven't thrown in over 2 years. So it was like, hey, like, do you want to like mess around, like kind of see if we can figure out how to do it? And I was like, yeah. So we started messing around, and it was like a building phase, kind of how we stumbled upon it, really. But then once we actually got into it, my first time on the mound,
wasn't pretty.
was like 79.
Wasn't pretty.
79. The most I could throw was like 81. It was kind of pathetic. My arm didn't feel great doing it. And then like slowly as we went on, in 4 weeks, I was able to get to 91.
Yeah.
And like, it was kind of a gut punch to Eric too. He was pissed off because after all this time, he still hadn't hit 90. And it was like,
I was pissed.
yeah.
I was pissed.
But it kind of worked out because it was like you were taking your break at that point. And then when we came back this summer to launch, like, and you were like, dude, like, I want to test it on me if it works.
100%.
We did the exact same stuff. And I mean, you tell them on your experience of like what happened. And why did you even decide you want to start throwing again?
Because I wanted to throw harder than you. It pissed me off. But no, like, we spent so much time developing the program. It was like, we saw what it did for you. And like, I just got done telling you guys that I was topping 86 before I expired and retired my baseball career.
I mean, you had 80, like you've got 89 before.
Yeah.
But
I'm talking about like, I don't even count
you
that.
really sat at like 85, 86.
Yeah.
So
it's like, dude, I gotta try this. Like, I have to give it a try. And it was like 2 weeks in, I was popping 88, and I was like, oh, okay, like we're getting somewhere here. And then, dude, after 8 weeks, fucking 92. Like, topping 86 to topping 92 in 8 weeks. I don't know.
I mean, right now we both have a mutual goal of getting to 95.
Yeah.
And we know that's going to take a little bit more time.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, we're both trying to get to 95 now. we both kind of know it's just not going to happen in this short amount of time. Because to be completely honest, I hit my number of 91 and then I stopped throwing after 4 weeks. Like I was done because I was like I figured it out. Like I'm cool. So now it's like when you started, I started to get back into it with you, and now it's like, hey, let's see how far we can push this. And like as we do it, it's just we're documenting everything and we're learning. It's like everyone knows how to do it. It's just you got to really commit like yourself to it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like you can't be a program hopper. That's the biggest thing. You can't hop from program to program because one, you just keep changing up the things that you do. Your body has to get used to what you're doing first, and eventually you'll respond well to it. And two, you don't have the time. You don't have the time to be a program hopper.
Now, do you think the fact that we track everything, that's helped?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why I think we've both been able to make the jumps we have. Because we just track everything.
What would you say to people whose time's about to expire?
I would say...
Do you think they should start tracking their average fastball and stop lying to themselves so they know where they really stand?
Yeah, that's a good one. Be honest with yourself. Like it's very easy to look in the mirror and lie to yourself and delude yourself into thinking you have time, or like, oh, I'll make this jump in X amount of time, like no problem. It's like, no, it's not true. And it's like, I'm living proof of that. I expired, and like that's fine. But part of the reason I developed this with Nick, or we developed this together, is like we want people to,
I mean, we literally coach people.
We want people to make their baseball dreams happen. Like we want you guys to get drafted. We want you guys to go to the Major Leagues, Hall of Fame, stuff like that. But it's like, you can't lie to yourself. You have to be honest. Like if you're throwing 80 poo, no problem. Put 80 poo in the tracker and we'll work up and we'll throw harder. But it's like, it starts with being honest with yourself, seeing where you are, knowing what you need to do to get to where you want to go.
There's also no running from it.
There's no running
from it.
You
throw what you throw.
And like the only running from it, it's like, that'll take you out of the game.
Yeah.
Like, sure, you want to run from it.
If you lie to yourself, it's just like when you get out there and people are actually seeing what's going on, like, they see it.
Yeah. And it's like you're just embarrassing yourself at that point.
Yeah.
It's like the scrub said he threw 90, he's thrown 81. Because like there's a ton of kids like that.
Or maybe he threw 90 at some point, and guess what? He did it one time and he blew his bullets so bad he's got nothing in the tank, and now he's sitting like 82.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, I'm going to trust that guy to go out there. That's tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we're going to do, actually, we're going to show you guys the trackers that we use. We'll actually go over Eric's and kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, how you can kind of be honest with yourself and track it. It's really not that hard, and talk about how it's been useful.
So we have my bullpen tracker here with all my velos. We're going to go over it week by week. I'm going to read off the numbers so you can kind of get an idea of where I started and then where I finished with all this.
So your starting max velocity is at the top, right? So this is what you remember actually being in season last season you played, like your last playing season, right?
Yeah, so that was 86.7.
Do you know by any chance what your average was over the last, I'd say, your last season you played and like your actual last year of training before we started this up? Or did you really record that before?
It was somewhere around 85.2.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, it was 85.2.
Did you guys use a Rapsodo, everyone?
We did.
Oh,
yeah, we had everything on Rapsodo. But on our program, my week one average velo is 86.1. That, which is again is higher than my average has been in the past. Obviously, I just mentioned it was 85.2.
So, question for you, right? Your top from when you were playing, right? 86.7. What do you think the difference is? The fact that you were able to hit an 88.7 your first week back throwing. Do you think it was kind of what we did leading up to it, like building into that day, or do you think it was a little bit you had a lot of rest?
I think it was definitely a combination of the two. I had, obviously had a lot of rest, but really just taking the time to get my arm back into shape and, doing obviously the throwing we were doing on our program helped.
If you show them, and we can kind of talk about it, like look at the actual week one stuff. We didn't throw that much. I mean, it was really just threw 30.
Yeah, 30 pitch pen. Wasn't too many, pitches in terms of volume, but Coming off of 2 years of not really throwing, or however long I wasn't throwing for, that's quite a bit of pitches.
So so it's one of your first 15 pitches, like your first quote unquote inning, you were 86, 87, or no, you were 86.7. And then your second inning, you kind of tapered off, you were 85.5. So it's like you get to see this though, you get to see where your trends are. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm just going to kind of scroll through so the people who are watching can see it, and we'll kind of tell you with our words what's going on here. But Eric had a trend where week 2, his max velo was his 5th pitch. Week 3, his max velo was his 7th. Week 4, his max velo was his 7th. Week 5, his max velo was his 7th. And then I think he broke it in week 7, because week 6, it was still the 5th pitch. And then week 7, he broke out of that on his 15th pitch, and he kind of broke the mold. But I mean, for a while there, it was almost like, if you don't record this, you don't see what your trends are.
Yeah.
Like how much you actually have.
100%. And it was like those first couple weeks that I was maxing out pitch 5. It was like I was blowing my load super early, like throwing my hardest pitches within the first 10 of the bullpen, and then it tapered off from there.
Was that warm up, or do you think that was just like conditioning?
That was just conditioning. Like you can see as the weeks go on, that kind of like I'm able to hold my velo throughout the full length of the pen. And like that just comes from what we do and like building your arm up, obviously. But yeah, in those first couple of weeks, I had no endurance whatsoever.
All right, so let's talk about your first time flash in 90, week 3. Week 3 to a certain point. So week 3, his max velo is 90.4. And just so you guys know, that week we started to increase the amount of actual throwing. So I think that was 35 or something like that.
Yeah.
And his average was 88.4. So he went from not being able to really max out of 86.7 to now, for those pitches, he was able to average 88.4, which is actually pretty good. But then that was his max going into week 8. So you kind of want to talk about what changed from, I'd say, weeks 4 through 7, where it was like your average was relatively the same, because you were like 87.8 at your highest average after that. So you went from 88.4, then you went down to 88.1.
Yeah, so we can see I kind of took a little bit of a dip in those middle couple of weeks, but honestly, that's to be expected when you're going through a building phase. Really, for me,
so they know, how many pitches were you throwing from weeks 5 on?
From weeks 5 on, we were throwing 50 pitches.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it was
getting
quite
adjusted. So.
Yeah, 100%. So like week 5 and on, we were throwing 50 pitches, and like I said, when you're going through a velo phase, there's going to be a dip at some point, but you kind of just have to ride that out, and then it tends to shoot up pretty drastically after that happens, which we can obviously see happen with me.
I mean, you kind of tapered off. Your worst week was week 6, where you went to 85.7.
Yeah,
and then even your top, it was like it barely scratched above what you did in week 1. It was 88.8, which isn't bad compared to what you were doing, but it's just definitely a discrepancy between 3 miles an hour. So, and then what did you finish with in week 8? You built back up to
week 8. We got a 92.6, which obviously shattered my all-time personal PR. Wish I could have gotten that when I was actually playing, but you know, you live and you learn. But it's like, that's not what I really care about. It's more so about throwing 88.1 as my average, you know, the last week, basically a whole 2 mile an hour jump. Cause it's like, if we go to that week, we see how many times I get a 92. 1.
I mean, you hit a decent amount of 90s.
Yeah, I had a lot of 90s, which was cool. But like we see at the end, I start to taper off a little bit. But it's like,
so just so they know, his last inning, he went 14 pitches and he sat 87.8, which isn't horrible, but it was like, it's almost like a mile. It's close to, actually, no, you were pretty relative, like around that whole time, you were decent.
Yeah.
You just didn't get a 90.
No, yeah, it's not bad. And it's
so
like,
before he had you had like 3 or 4, you might have like 5 90s in your first inning. And then your second inning, you had, was that a 90.1, a 91.5, 92.1, 91.2, 90.5. So that's like 5.
Yeah.
And then you just didn't even flash 1 in your last inning.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad.
Well, the cool thing is we're not done. So it's like we're hopefully what I'm topping now, 92.6, I could be sitting, maybe in the next 2 months. Who knows? It's like the sky's the limit at this point. But it just goes to show you, like,
and your 92.6 was in the dirt.
Yeah.
That spiked.
We can clip to that if we want, but 92.6 was nowhere near the zone.
92.1 was a strike though.
92.1 was bottom, was outside corner. It was a good pitch.
I mean, overall, you got what? Like from weeks 1, your average through all the weeks was 87.3.
Which is still, which is a mile,
but that's
whole mile per hour.
That's everything. Like from doing everything weeks 1 through 8, you average around 87.3. So that's factoring in what you started at.
Correct.
Like if you just went, which we are, but if you look at the next 8 weeks from now, like you'll probably be averaging like 88, 89.
Yeah.
Which is a big difference.
100%.
And that's just time.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's like everyone's different. It takes your arm a little bit of time to get used to a new throwing schedule, a building
what
phase.
We were talking about there before, though. It's like now you have time because you expired.
Yeah.
Not everyone has time, so you kind of have to make up your mind on what you're going to do early. Because if you don't decide sooner than later, you're going to expire. You don't want to be like Eric. Eric can take as much time as he wants to throw 95 or average 93 or whatever it is, but he's expired. He's done. His shelf life's over.
Yeah.
You kind of got to make up your mind and make a move earlier.
Yeah, guys. So we're going to wrap this one up for today. Basically, the gist of this whole thing was to stress the importance of average velo and how important it is to maximize the time you have. Because if you're listening to this, it likely isn't much, right? You're probably a guy in high school or college and you want to throw harder, but you don't know exactly how to do it or how much time you have. So all of these reasons are why we developed the 90 mile an hour blueprint, which is what we've been following, what has got me to make my transformation, which got Coach Nick to make his transformation. We developed this for you guys so you don't run out of time and expire like I did, right? So if you're interested, you can go check out our YouTube. We post literally the entire process that we do on our YouTube. You can find us on Instagram, shoot us a DM with the word blueprint, and we'll get you over a link to reserve your spot for the program. We'll link everything in the description below. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.